I'd like to welcome everyone to our budget work session. Today is May the 27th, 2026. If you would, join me in a moment of silent prayer followed by a pledge of allegiance, please. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, to the republic, which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice. Any public comments? Okay. All right, moving on down to the reason we're here. Presentation of the fiscal year 27 recommended budget. I'll turn it over to you, Ms. Williamson.
Good afternoon, Chairman, Commissioners, staff, and citizens. I am pleased to present for your consideration the fiscal FY27 recommended annual budget for Caswell County, which is a balance in accordance with the Local Government Budget and Fiscal Control Act. This budget serves as a bridge toward long-term fiscal sustainability while maintaining core services and avoiding the use of fund balance for recurring operations. I will present the FY27 recommended budget in its entirety first, and then administration and Ms. Sharp will be glad to answer any questions or provide clarification on any items discussed. Next slide. At $33.1 million, the recommended general fund budget is $3.8 million less than the FY26 budget, maintains the current property tax rate of 62.7 cents per $100 of assessed value, and does not use fund balance to support recurring operations. Eliminating the use of fund balance is an important transition in the county's financial posture. Balancing this budget without fund balance requires difficult reductions, deferrals, and trade-offs that cannot become the county's long-term financial strategy. Next slide. My goal is to provide a clear understanding of the recommended budget and the difficult decisions required to balance this budget. This presentation is organized and explains about around 5 key questions that guided the development of the recommended budget and explains the county's current financial condition and long-term strategy. Question 1, what financial condition is driving the FY27 recommendation? What budget, I think, is that better? Okay. What budget strategy is being recommended? Question 3, how was the budget balanced without a tax increase? Question 4, what trade-offs and risks remain? Question 5, what must happen next to rebuild long-term physical sustainability? Next slide. The reality we now face. Let's start with the first question. What financial conditions are driving the FY27 budget recommendations? Next slide. Our local economy is impacted by broader economic uncertainty at the national global levels, especially around inflation, tariffs, and the recent conflict in Iran. Gas prices have risen more than 50%, leading to a current average of $4.19 per gallon. In March, inflation rose to 3.3%. From 2.4% in February, making the largest monthly increase since the pandemic era. This affects the cost of fuel, utilities, supplies, vehicles, construction, technology, and our basic operating costs. In addition to inflation, local governments across North Carolina are also monitoring potential changes at the state level that could significantly impact future local revenues. Next slide. Internally, we face a structural imbalance in our budget and a declining fund balance. The FY24 audit report that reducing our unassigned fund balance had reduced to $1.8 million or just 5%. The structural imbalance began in FY22 and FY23 when $3.6 million of one-time ARPA funds were used for new recurring expenses. These temporary one-time funds ended, but the ongoing expenditures continued and required the use of fund balance. Even with a 4.2-cent property tax rate increase in FY26, an additional $4.2 million from fund balance reserves was required to balance the budget. Since the budget included new ongoing expenses, the tax increase did not address the structural imbalance. These events required an immediate correction in FY27 budget. This issue is not a one-year shortfall. It is a structural imbalance created by recurring expenditures exceeding the recurring revenues. Next slide. This chart shows the declining trends in both total and unassigned fund balance. Unassigned fund balance dropped below healthy operating reserve levels, emphasizing the importance of rebuilding reserves. Revenues exceeded expenditures significantly in 22 and 23 due to the one-time ARPA funds, requiring increased fund balance appropriations in fiscal years 24, 25, and 26 to support the recurring expenditures. This reduced the unassigned fund balance to $1.8 million as reported in the FY24 audit. Even after a 4.2-cent tax increase in FY26, the county still required approximately $3.7 million from fund balance. FY27 begins correcting that imbalance by recommending no recurring use of fund balance. Next slide. A strategy built on 5 goals. At the board's March retreat, the budget gap was estimated at $3.3 million based on anticipated revenues, excluding fund balance. The FY27 budget was balanced with decreases totaling $3.8 million. Next slide. Second question is, what is our recommended budget strategy? Protect fund balance by avoiding its use for recurring operating costs. Maintain the current property tax rate. Maintain core mandated services. Match recurring revenues with recurring expenditures. Reduce department operating expenses based on historical 3-year spending patterns. Next slide. Fund balance. The most important strategy for the budget was to not include fund balance to support recurring operations. The key to fiscal sustainability is fund balance. Fund balance provides operational stability, creates capacity to respond to emergencies, and offers flexibility to adjust when financial conditions change. It provides cash flow before taxes are collected and allows flexibility during emergencies, natural disasters, or economic downturns. Strong fund balance is also important to our lenders and local government commission. It is important to understand that fund balance will still be available in FY27 for true one-time needs, such as emergencies or unexpected situations if necessary. One concern that has been raised is that the proposed budget is very lean and does not include a contingency appropriation. However, if the board approves the recommendation to not appropriate fund balance for recurring operations, the fund balance in the assigned category will be eliminated and those funds will move to the unassigned category, increasing the available fund balance. Based on current projections, if no additional assigned fund balance is appropriated for FY27 operations, unassigned fund balance is estimated to increase to approximately 11.1%, which is roughly $3.6 million. The Local Government Commission generally recommends a minimum of 8%, so the county would remain above that recommended threshold. The recommendation provides the county with greater financial stability and flexibility moving forward while still preserving reserves for emergencies. Next slide. Fund balance is an important indicator of a county's fiscal health. An 8% fund balance represents roughly 1 month of expenditures and should be treated as a warning threshold, not a long-term target. The FY24 audit reported unassigned fund balance of only 5.7%. The FY27 budget is built to protect the fund balance by avoiding any appropriation for recurring expenditures. Next slide. Revenue outlook, ad valorem taxes. Let's first review the largest revenue source in the general fund, which represents almost 47% of the total budgeted revenue. These taxes are based on the combination values for real property, personal property, and motor vehicles of $2.44 billion, as shown in the chart. Ad valorem taxes for FY27 are budgeted at $15.5 million, an increase of $237,000, which is a 1.5% over the FY26 budgeted amount. Next slide. The tax rate for FY27 is recommended to remain constant at 62.7 cents per $100 of assessed value. This property tax chart shows the changes in the county's property taxes over the past several fiscal years. It is important to remember that the countywide property reevaluation was completed during FY24, but the updated property values did not impact revenues until FY25. Following the reevaluation, the board adopted a revenue-neutral tax rate of 58.5 cents. A revenue-neutral rate is designed to generate approximately the same amount of revenue as the prior year, excluding growth from new construction or improvements. Because property values increased significantly during reevaluation, the tax rate itself decreased from 73.5 cents to 58.5 cents to remain revenue neutral. For FY27, the recommended tax rate remains at 62.7 cents with no additional tax increase being recommended. Next slide. Sales taxes are budgeted at $7.67 million, essentially flat from FY26. This reflects a loss of almost $400,000 in Medicaid hold harmless funds due to sharply rising local Medicaid costs that are outpacing the county's sales tax growth. Medicaid would be higher in growth over the sales taxes. Next slide. This slide shows a summary of general fund revenues by source. The total general fund revenue estimate is $33 million, representing a $3.8 million decrease from FY26. The decline is entirely driven by the elimination of the FY26 recurring fund balance appropriation of $4.2 million. Excluding the reduction due to fund balance, recurring revenue increased by approximately $361,000. The real story, operating revenues are growing. Excluding fund balance, recurring revenues actually did increase approximately $361,000, which is a 1.1% increase. Notable shifts. Intergovernmental revenue, that was our largest favorable swing of $822,000. Permits and fees, it was decreased by $701,000, which was our largest unfavorable change. Property taxes increased $242,000, which is approximately 1.6% increase over FY26. It's modest, stable growth consistent with maintaining the current tax rate. Sales taxes, slightly increase of $21,000, which is a 0.3% increase over FY26. Essentially, it is flat, suggesting steady but not accelerating economic activity. Next slide. This slide is a pie chart that shows the revenue breakdown by category. 70% of the county's revenue is from property and sales taxes, mostly locally generated sales and tax base. Next slide. How the recommended budget was balanced. After considering natural revenue growth of $361,000, multiple strategies were utilized to eliminate the remaining projected budget gap of $3.8 million and restore structural balance. Next slide. We first had to consider mandated cost increase driven by federal state requirements or prior board decisions. Retirement rates. The recommended budget includes an additional $99,000 to cover continued annual increases in employer contribution rates to cover system shortfalls. Supplemental Food and Nutrition Program, SNAP, effective October the 1st, 2026, the federal share of administrative cost reimbursement for this program will be reduced from 50% to 25%. Because the state will not absorb this gap, the cost shift falls to the counties. The cost to Castle County for this unfunded mandate over 9 months is $78,000. Medicaid redetermination frequency. Currently, Medicaid eligibility is reviewed annually. Effective December 2026, federal guidelines require counties to perform eligibility determinations every 6 months, doubling the administrative workload. The budget includes $9,000 for position reclassifications to address this mandate. Health insurance increases. The recommended budget also includes approximately $151,000 in increased employer health insurance costs in accordance with the board's decision for the county to absorb the increase. Retirement rates, SNAP, Medicaid redeterminations, and health insurance are totaling approximately $337,000 in mandated cost. Next slide. Although this budget is lean, there are critical public safety items that need to be addressed. Ambulance purchase. The board previously approved the purchase of a new ambulance to replace a high-mileage emergency vehicle. Given the challenges of the FY27 budget, I recommend not proceeding with the planned debt issuance for the ambulance purchase through fund balance. This will save approximately $52,000 in recurring debt payments. EMS has requested the replacement of another ambulance as a remount for $271,000. I recommend moving forward with debt financing for this purchase over 5 years, consistent with the expected useful life of the remount. And the budget includes $45,000 for the first year of debt service. UHF system. The county's public safety UHF radio system needs to be replaced. To mitigate the immediate cash impact of spending $675,000, we recommend financing this system over 10 years. Debt service funds of $50,000 are included in the recommended budget for the first year's debt service. Next slide. The third question is, how was the budget balanced without a tax increase? There is no single action that balanced the budget. 4 key initiatives led to the $3.8 million decrease in budget expenditures. 1, budget right-sizing. 2, position audit. 3, turnover and vacancy analysis. And 4, deferring capital expenditures. Next slide. Let's talk in detail about the steps conducted in right-sizing departmental operating. Developed a 3-year average of actual expenditures from FY24, 25, and projected FY26. This became the target-based budget for operating, which aligns with historical spending. Administration and finance met with all departments to discuss the revised budgets based on the target rate. The goal was to ensure services could be maintained at the new target-based rate. This process yielded a reduction of approximately $527,000. Next slide. Strategy to budget for position vacancies. The county continues to face recruitment and retention challenges, resulting in significant lapsed salary funds, since salaries are budgeted assuming all positions are filled continuously throughout the year. We experience staff turnover, which may take months to fill the position. This generates budget savings. A vacancy allowance is a reduction in the budgeted salaries based upon a historical vacancy turnover rate to our largest departments. Next slide. This chart shows the details of the recommended vacancy rates used to create budgeted salary savings. This strategy yielded net savings of $1.3 million after accounting for a corresponding loss of federal and state revenues. We believe the recommended vacancy rate is conservative and it is closely mirrors prior actual payroll reversions. FY26 projected savings is $1.6 million and the budgeted FY27 vacancy rate is $1.3 million. Current vacancies is 39 and the FY27 vacancy rate position is equivalent to 29 positions. HR and the finance director will need to monitor the vacancy rate monthly. All vacancies and hiring actions will require county manager approval. Next slide. This chart provides the components of how the $3.8 million gap was closed. Vacancy rate and elimination of positions is $1.6 million. The central permitting and HR specialist and a position in family services were eliminated, and then you include the vacancy rate. Budget accuracy and reductions equals $827,000. This came from target reductions, salary and fringe benefit review, and in the maintenance capital budget, we did remove $100,000 for painting the exterior of the historical courthouse. Ag building removed $20,000, carpet and flooring, removed $9,000 for historical courthouse basement floors to finish them, removed a leaf vac system of $4,500, and removed $15,000 for a fence at Guilford Mills, and removed $5,000 for a salt dog. Debt service reduction equals $732,000. New revenue growth is $361,000. And that's growth that just occurs automatically, such as property taxes, growth, sales tax growth, and interest earnings. And contingency, we remove that from the FY27 budget, which is $280,000. So these are the components of closing the gap. Next slide. This is a pie chart that shows how the recommended expenditure budget of $33 million by function. Over 70% of the budget is allocated to public safety, human services, and education, which are mandated services. As you can see from the pie chart, this is a very lean budget. Next slide. This pie chart provides a view of the $33 million by expenditure category. Since our mission is service-driven, over 50% of the budget is driven by salaries and fringe benefits. If you look, supplies are less than 6% and maintenance repair is 1.5%. This pie chart represents that we are a service organization. Next slide. Education funding. Caswell County Schools. The current expense operating request was $4,277,826. Represents a $1,119,734 increase, which is a 35% increase. The recommended allocation holds funding flat at the FY26 adopted baseline of $3,078,092. Piedmont Community College, PCC requested $1,233,689 for current operating expenses and capital needs, which was a 20% increase. The recommended budget provides $923,689, which is a 10% decrease from FY26. Allocated as $686,689 for current expenses and $237,000 for capital outlay. Next slide. Schools capital outlay. The school requested $1,245,800 in capital outlay funding. The prior year allocation of $400,000 is included in the recommended budget, leaving $845,800 of the request unfunded. It is recommended that the $845,800 be funded through available lottery funds. Of course, both the Board of Commissioners and the Board of Education will have to agree to vote on these funds since both chairmen must sign off. Next slide. This slide shows how the $3.8 million expenditure functions are allocated by function compared to the FY26 adopted budget. There was a reduction in almost every function. You can see with contractual service, public safety, pretty much everything, there was a reduction except for general government and transfers. Next slide. This chart breaks down the $33 million in recommended expenditures by expenditure category compared to the FY26 budget. Salaries and benefits experienced the largest reduction primarily due to vacancy savings and position eliminations. As you can see, the expenditure category variance between FY26 and FY27 decreased by $3.8 million. Next slide. Due to limited recurring funding and internal right-sizing of county departments, special appropriations to community organizations were reduced in the total amount of $20,207. The Art Council, the request was $5,000. The recommended budget is $4,000. The Caswell Parish, the request $15,000. The recommended budget $12,000. The Partnership for Children $3,000. The recommended budget $2,400. Caswell Historical Foundation, $15,000. Recommended budget is $12,000. Caswell Horticulture Club, request $6,000. Recommended budget $4,000. Forestry, $103,818 was in their original request, but after we looked into theirs further, it is recommended $109,217. Local Food Council, the request was $5,000. The recommended budget is $4,000. And the Outreach Ministry, the request $15,000, and the recommended budget is $12,000. Next slide. Solid Waste Department budget overview. Recommended budget equals $2,150,000, an increase of $123,140. Maintains current service levels and provides funding for operating cost increases. Next slide. The cost increase are related to first Piedmont hauling rates, municipal solid waste disposal fees, C&D disposal fees, and environmental compliance costs. Fee increases are recommended to continue current service levels. Availability fee needs to go from $55, it needs to increase to $64. Disposal fee needs to increase from $75 to $83. These revised fees will generate approximately $186,000 of new revenue. The fee increases were considered after a reduction of departmental operations, where possible, to limit the impact on the citizens. Environmental compliance requirements also increased significantly this year. Required monitoring wells, surface water sampling, roadway access, maintenance, and continued groundwater monitoring added approximately $118,080 in additional costs. And the budget also includes indirect costs. But I know that the director from Solid Waste has been before the board to make you aware of the additional costs of the $118,000 that were mandated to provide this requirement. Next slide. The total countywide budget across all funds is $40.8 million, and the detail by fund is shown in the chart. The countywide recommended budget decreased $3.7 million, which is largely attributed to the reductions in the general fund. Next slide. The trade-offs. The fourth question to be answered is what trade-offs or risks remain? The recommended budget restores the structural balance for FY27, but it does not eliminate financial risk. Several needs are deferred or unfunded to avoid increasing the tax rate and to avoid using fund balance for recurring operations. Next slide. Although this FY27 budget is balanced, it does not mean it's comfortable. Cost of living adjustment. Regrettably, the county's current financial condition did not allow for a much-deserved COLA increase for employees. Inflation has increased, and our staff is filling a significant gap between their wages and the soaring cost of gas and groceries. Sheriff's Office vehicles. The recommended budget does not include general fund appropriations for vehicle replacement in the Sheriff's Office, even though several vehicles meet high mileage replacement criteria. To ensure we remain on track with our fleet replacement strategy, the current year unspent debt service and uplift funds are recommended for the purchase of between 5 and 8 replacement vehicles, depending on final FY26 projections. A budget amendment will be presented to the board at the second meeting in June for approval before proceeding. Expand education funding. School funding was held flat and community college capital allocations were markedly reduced. Next slide. Long-term physical sustainability. The question that must be addressed, what must happen next to rebuild physical resilience? Next slide. Although the FY27 recommended budget gap has been eliminated, we took aggressive measures to balance this budget. This recommended budget is not sustainable in long term and leaves uncertainty about our ability to sustain operations, support local education, retain employees, protect our infrastructure. Holding the line on the school allocations, deferring building maintenance, freezing vehicle cycles, and skipping salary adjustments are temporary stopgap measures. Our long-term financial strategy must focus on rebuilding physical resilience through 4 critical pillars. Healthy fund reserves. Develop a fund balance policy that identifies the minimum level or percentage of fund balance to be maintained. Asset management and infrastructure planning. Build a capital improvement plan. Structural balance. Recurring expenditures are added only to the extent that available revenues are identified, and limit fund balance usage to one-time expenses. Financial vision. Every decision around financial sustainability must be viewed from a long-term perspective. Ensure today's decisions do not compromise the financial health, infrastructure, or safety of our community. Next slide. Steps to build physical resilience. Before considering a tax increase, the county needs to continue right-sizing the organization. This process involves restructuring our internal operations to align services with recurring revenues by evaluating which services we maintain, consolidate, or cut. The steps in this evaluation are assessing the baseline, deferring the cost of maintaining current mandatory service levels against recurring revenues, prioritizing core and mandated services, evaluating the cost efficiencies of providing statutory mandated program versus discretionary county programming, streamlining operations, reviewing organizational processes, and merge overlapping department functions. Exploring alternative delivery methods. Determine whether non-core services can be effectively be provided by external entities or through shared or joint services. Implementation and continuous monitoring requires departments to develop performance metrics to track service delivery levels, optimize peak hours, and phase out programs where operational costs exceed public usage. Mr. Chairman and board members, I need to share the reality of this challenge. Building a capital improvement plan, a fleet management plan, and conducting an operational right sizing is critical for our county's future. However, we must be realistic about the sheer volume of the work required. These are not passive administrative tasks. They are deeply complex, data-driven, structural overhauls. Attempting to execute 3 in tandem represents a generational shift in how the county operates. Without outside assistance, this will be a multi-year process. Next slide. Key dates to remember for the budget process. On Monday, June 1st at 5 o'clock at our Board of Commissioners meeting, we will hold a public hearing for the FY27 recommended budget. Fourth is an optional work session to, time to be determined. June the 8th is an optional work session. June 15th, the goal is for the board to adopt the FY27 budget. Next slide. The FY27 recommended budget is presented for your review and consideration as you develop your adopted budget. This budget demonstrates a commitment to restoring our structural balance and initiating an organizational right sizing. It preserves our core public services, maintains the tax rate, and ends the practice of using fund balance reserves to support recurring operations. These steps are necessary for Caswell County and mark a turning point. Next slide. I would like to express my appreciation to all the county departments and staff for their hard work in developing the requested budgets and their vital collaboration in reducing their base operation budgets. I would also like to thank Jonna Sharp and Amy Cannon for helping me pull all of this together for today. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and board members, for providing me with the opportunity to share the details of the recommended budget. We're happy to answer any questions regarding the presentation and provide any other supplemental information. And also, please email or come by or call or to let me know of any specific things that you would like to see at the work session on June the 3rd. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Manager. Questions, comments, from board members at this time? No, we've got a work session. We have the public hearing on Monday during our regular meeting. That will be followed by a work session on Wednesday and Thursday of next week to really get into the numbers for each department. Any questions that anyone has? Either the manager or Ms. Shaw.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I'd just like to commend the whole staff for making the numbers work. You know, we're going to have to determine whether it's doing long-term damage to the county by making these numbers work. You know, if we can bring it in, revenues, expenses, which you're projecting, it still doesn't do anything for us in the coming years. So we've got to look long-term. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, gentlemen, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Have a motion from Commissioner Smith. Second from Commissioner Rose. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned.